You all know what they saw. They saw what we saw. They saw the frail elderly man who needed help getting off the stage. They're just too chicken shit to tell us about it because they accurately deduced that he could still be the Democratic nominee and they don't want to ding him up. Maybe you give Barbara a pass. Who gives a damn what this singer saw or says? But you know what? Jimmy Kimmel happens to be employed by ABC, which happens to have a rather large news organization. And he has been one of President Trump's most vocal critics. Where are you, Jimmy? On vacation? Not good enough. You can still use your thumbs to send out a tweet. You could set the record straight right now, but you won't.
What if I told you the king of late night isn't just losing his crown? He's becoming a punchline for the very people who stand for everything he used to represent. Forget polite celebrity feuds. We're talking about an unscripted, no-holds-barred takedown of Jimmy Kimmel by two of the most unfiltered voices in media, Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly. And trust me, it's uglier than a Twitter reply section after a controversial hot take. This isn't just about a celebrity roast, it's a full-scale autopsy of modern media. And Kimmel's transformation is the cadaver. In this video, we're diving deep into why these two media titans just tore into one of Hollywood's biggest names, revealing the uncomfortable truth about authenticity, comedy, and the hidden rules of staying relevant in the entertainment industry today. What did he do to provoke this kind of surgical strike? Stick around, because this rabbit hole goes way deeper than you think.
All of a sudden, the ideology shifts because so many people are compromised by this very thing that we were talking about before. The very thing that they use to control the media in terms of the news, they use it to control the media in terms of late night talk shows and monologues as well. It's the same influence because they're the same sponsors. The same people are spending the same money on the same networks. And it has an impact. If it affects your livelihood and affects your future and your ability to do this thing that you love doing, which is hosting a talk show, and you're doing it on a network that is paid for by that money, guess what? That affects you.
Remember when late night used to be fun? When Jimmy Kimmel was the relatable everyman, cracking jokes about beer pong and ridiculous stunts? He was the guy who could pull off a fart joke with the best of them, who felt like your slightly unhinged but hilarious buddy. Now, he's transformed into the moral compass of Hollywood, clutching his pearls over every perceived injustice, lecturing us from a pedestal built on, well, let's just say a very different kind of humor. It's almost like watching a punk rocker from the 90s suddenly show up at a PTA meeting, lecturing everyone about organic kale and sustainable living. What the hell happened to the guy who once hosted The Man Show? Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly aren't just wondering, they're laying out their theories in a way that's impossible to ignore. And it cuts right to the heart of what's wrong with media today.
Just this past 2 weeks, they had the Kennedy Center honors the other night where Joe Biden couldn't say Dionne Warwick. He kept calling her Diane, and he didn't know who Barry Gibb was. He kept calling him Billy. You know who else was honored? At the Kennedy Center. You know who else? Billy Crystal. Just FYI, do you know who once opened up the Academy Awards in full blackface?
Oh,
Billy
yeah.
Crystal.
Ooh.
Billy Crystal. And do you know who's going to be hosting the Academy Awards this year? Jimmy Kimmel. Do you know who's worn blackface repeatedly and spoken inner city sort of urban accent saying she needs to darn those socks? Jimmy Kimmel as Oprah, as a fat-suited, black-faced, darning socks Oprah. Now, if you are of the left, that's fine. If you are of the right and happen to just say, hey, people used to wear blackface and nobody freaked out about it, you get fired.
First up, enter Joe.
First up, the human Molotov cocktail himself, Joe Rogan. You know Joe. He doesn't just critique, he demolishes. He's the guy who built an empire on raw, unfiltered conversation, calling out BS wherever he sees it. For Rogan, Kimmel isn't just a late-night host who changed his tune. He's a walking, talking relic, a symbol of everything Rogan believes has gone wrong with modern comedy and media. Joe sees a man who traded genuine, risky humor for pre-approved corporate sermons. It's like your favorite dive bar suddenly installing velvet ropes and serving artisanal avocado toast. The soul is gone. And for Rogan, that's not just a creative choice. It's an offense to the very spirit of authentic expression. He sees Kimmel's transformation as a betrayal of what comedy should be: irreverent, unpredictable, and sometimes gloriously messy.
That sort of self-censorship and the idea of being a more empathetic person is a good thing, right? But as long as it's reasonable. But the thing is, the problem with that kind of stuff is it continues to go in the same direction where more and more things become forbidden and toxic.
Rogan's critique isn't personal, it's practically spiritual. He built his brand on being the unvarnished everyman, the guy who dared to say what everyone else was thinking. So, to watch Kimmel morph into Hollywood's official moral concierge, dishing out virtue signaling instead of actual punchlines. It's like discovering your favorite gritty rock band now performs acoustic sets for corporate retreats. It's a betrayal, underscored by a very awkward laugh track. Kimmel's entire journey, from crude prankster to self-appointed arbiter of right and wrong, feels less like genuine growth and more like a poorly written satire sketch. And that, for Rogan, is the ultimate comedy crime: a lack of authenticity. The man who once rode the comedy line like a rodeo bull now clutches a golden moral compass that points directly, conveniently, towards whatever gets the most applause. Rogan, the ultimate bloodhound for authenticity, can smell this rebrand from a mile away. He calls it a career Botox injection. It's not a pivot, it's a full-blown corporate makeover. And nothing screams, "I'm still edgy," like repeating the exact same tired political sermon, neatly sandwiched between jokes your HR department probably signed off on. Rogan's world? It's messy, it's chaotic, sometimes it's borderline insane. But it's brutally real. It's a place where people can disagree without instantly combusting into moral flames. Kimmel, on the other hand, seems to have traded his comedic soul for a safety blanket of Hollywood consensus. He's become utterly beige. It's like watching a punk rock icon from the 90s become a Whole Foods brand ambassador. His jokes used to land like a punch. Now they arrive like a corporate memo, complete with a trigger warning. And here's the kicker: the ecosystem. The late-night landscape Kimmel operates in isn't just sanitized, it's bleached, scrubbed, and perfectly gift-wrapped for the algorithm. Rogan looks around and sees an army of clones. Same jokes, same politics, same punchlines. No risk, no bite. Late night has officially become a daycare center for ideologues reading from cue cards. And Kimmel, according to Rogan, he's the head babysitter. Drop A in the comments if you've noticed this happening across all of entertainment. Not just late night.
You know, the Elon Musk joking around about my pronouns are prosecute Fauci. Jimmy Kimmel made a tweet back to him. He said, "Your pronouns are ass and hole," which is pretty funny. But then,
Did he really?
Yes. And so then I read that, and there was people saying, "Please don't joke about pronouns. It's transphobic to joke about pronouns." So they were chiding him for participating in a joke about pronouns.
So Jimmy Kimmel was doing it. He was doing it too.
Yeah, he was doing it too.
But hold on, because if Rogan swings a sledgehammer, Megyn Kelly glides in with a surgeon's scalpel. Her approach is clinical, forensic, and absolutely unflinching. She doesn't deal in bro jokes or podcast banter. She comes armed with a detailed report on media hypocrisy, and Kimmel, in her view, is the star exhibit. Where Rogan sees a fallen comedian, Kelly sees a well-dressed sock puppet, a mouthpiece for an industry that only pretends to care, as long as the metrics and the narrative align. For Kelly, Kimmel's transformation isn't just annoying, it's explicitly strategic. He didn't evolve, he pivoted. He saw the winds of political virtue blowing and meticulously duct-taped a sail to his suit.
You got the Sunday morning show with Stephanopoulos into the evening Academy Awards broadcast with Kimmel, and ABC elevating, the blackface loving Kimmel. They, at the same time, fired Chris Harrison, host of The Bachelor, for trying to defend one contestant on, The Bachelorette for saying, "Gee, I know I went to this antebellum party, a couple years ago. I guess I didn't see anything wrong with it." And all he said was, "Are we judging her by today's standards, or are we judging her by, old standards?" Whatever. He was basically trying to say, are we being too hard on her? Got fired. Chris Harrison has to be fired by ABC. I don't know why, because he's not a committed leftist, because he's not out there more saying all the terrible things about Republicans that Jimmy Kimmel says. So this is them saying, we get it. We're an ally. Right? And I guess maybe they're trying to make up with their racist past, without ever acknowledging it.
She has zero patience for performative empathy, especially when it conveniently overlooks a past that suddenly disappears in a fog of selective outrage. Kimmel, the former king of crude, is now the self-appointed moral sheriff, but only when it's safe. And isn't it fascinating how these celebrity redemption arcs always seem to align perfectly with contract renewals? Almost like they're scheduled. Kelly exposes the magic trick. Kimmel preaches from a pedestal built on the very behavior he now condemns, and Hollywood just eats it up.
Cheers. Not because they believe him, but because he's useful.
Yes, hypocrisy is alive and well amongst these sanctimonious leftists. From Kimmel to De Niro to Stephanopoulos, they want you to believe they're better than you, more virtuous, more decent. But we all know the truth. They lie. They sin. They do the very things they accuse you of and the things they say they would never do. Evil things. Like try to destroy people based on feigned outrage from which they spare their own side.
The media absolutely adores a redemption story, as long as the redeemed happily join the pre-approved choir. And Jimmy, he's practically the lead soprano, front and center. But here's where Kelly's insight gets truly chilling. She doesn't just dissect the PR games and publicist-fueled apologies, she exposes the incentives behind it all. Kimmel didn't get a pass because he was genuinely sorry. He got a pass because he switched sides. It's not about morality anymore. It's about market alignment. Morals are optional. Loyalty to the dominant narrative, that's mandatory. So now, you have two wildly different critiques converging on the same man, each piercingly accurate in its own way. Rogan saw the plastic shell where a genuine comedian used to be. Kelly exposed the empty suit behind the media curtain. Together, they form the unlikeliest tag team in cultural commentary. One swinging a blunt force bat, the other meticulously filing a forensic report. The only thing missing is our popcorn. The real tragedy isn't even the comedy itself. It's the fact that it doesn't even try anymore. Kimmel, who once pushed boundaries, now diligently babysits them. His monologues aren't about punchlines, they're about proving he did his homework. This concept of market alignment is crucial. If you're finding this insightful, drop a E in the comments.
They were saying that his tweet is transphobic.
Do you think that was, in that case, do you think that's him or a writer? Can't you tell?
Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah.
No, it's him, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
good. That's a good one.
He's a comic.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, he used to host The Man Show. I mean, he's done some pretty outrageous shit back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, for he-he's and ha-ha's.
No, that's a good joke on top of a good joke.
Yeah, it's a good joke.
But here's the thing. Viewers didn't tune in to be graded. They tuned in to laugh. Somewhere along the way, the jokes became sermons, and the punchlines turned into TED Talks with obligatory applause signs. That's the core absurdity Rogan and Kelly perfectly nail. A guy who once represented irreverence now embodies scripted outrage. A comedian who once skewered hypocrisy now meticulously schedules it. There's no rebellion left, just endless rebranding. And in the ultimate irony of modern media, the more Kimmel moralizes, the more hollow it sounds. Not because morality is inherently bad, but because his feels so transparently manufactured. Every teary speech, every carefully crafted outrage comes prepackaged for social media consumption. It's sincerity by committee. So, what's the damage? For one, late-night TV has become an echo chamber so loud it can't hear itself. Rogan watches from his leather-padded bunker of chaos and wonders when comedy became a PowerPoint presentation. Kelly, sipping espresso in her media war room, watches the same clown car crash unfold over and over. Kimmel, caught in the middle, says nothing, but he doesn't need to. His silence speaks louder than any of his monologues, because at the end of the day, it's not just what he says, it's what he's become. A punchline without a setup, a moral compass with a brand deal, a performer in a performance.
Play no one finds funny anymore.
Now, I will tell you, he's not the worst. The Daily Show has the worst ratings. They only have 366,000 people watching that show. During the Jon Stewart years, it was over 2 million. Now it's down to 300,000. Seth Meyers, absolutely dreadful. He doesn't even have 1 million, 778,000. I mean, for network television, this is, you don't have to pay for it. It's there when you turn on your TV, you plug it in. That's a dreadful number. Greg Gutfeld on cable, which you do have to pay for, it has more than double the numbers of Seth Meyers. Jimmy Kimmel, 1.5 million, averaging, also equally horrible.
Rogan and Kelly didn't debate him. They didn't even invite him to the roast. They simply observed the act and called it what it was. A sitcom without a script, a sermon with a laugh track, an empire built on irony now desperately selling sincerity at half price. This whole saga feels less like a celebrity beef and more like a Netflix documentary titled The Day the Clown Cried and for ratings. Because when Joe Rogan, the blunt force caveman philosopher, and Megyn Kelly, the high-stakes courtroom prosecutor, both find themselves dragging Jimmy Kimmel through the exact same mud puddle, you know something far deeper is brewing beneath the manufactured laughter. It boils down to a simple, brutal equation: authenticity versus performance. Joe Rogan's entire brand is built on being raw, unfiltered, and occasionally offensive enough to send PR departments into cardiac arrest. He's never tried to be universally lovable, and ironically, that's his superpower. Kimmel, however, has transformed himself into something resembling a human press release. His once edgy comedic soul, long gone. Probably traded it in for a nicer hairpiece and a moral high ground with a suspiciously scenic view.
You know, they want to shut me down on being on McAfee. They want to shut me up from.
Well, that was the Kimmel thing, right?
Well, that was no. Did
you ever talk to that dude? Have you ever talked to him?
I've been on the show.
Yeah?
Years ago. Yeah.
Would you ever have a conversation with him in person?
Of course. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I mean, they wanted me to be on the show in the summertime after I got traded.
Really?
There, obviously been some things that he had said about me that made me go, I don't know if I want to do that. I'd rather.
It's like watching that former punk rocker show up at a PTA meeting, wearing khakis, passionately arguing about gluten-free cupcakes. The man who used to lampoon Hollywood now is Hollywood. He's wrapped in branded virtue, meticulously sprinkled with whatever the internet finds palatable this week. Rogan's angle? Kimmel isn't evolving. He's dissolving into a safe, inoffensive puddle of applause-seeking goo. Then Megyn Kelly sweeps in, looking like a corporate HR investigator who's found every single receipt. She doesn't care that Kimmel used to be funny. She's far more fascinated by how meticulously he's been repackaged and resold. In her view, this transformation is too suspiciously convenient to be genuine growth. It's not personal evolution, it's moral Botox. Looks clean, feels fake, and definitely needs touch-ups every few months just to stay relevant. Together, they don't just critique the man, they expose the entire system he now thrives in. And this brings us to the truly devastating loss, the lost art of comedy itself. Remember when comedians actually took risks? When jokes made people uncomfortable, made them squirm, maybe even made them rethink their entire belief system? Yeah, those were the days. Now, comedy's been sedated, neutered, and tossed into a branded merch store where every punchline must be pre-opened. If you remember comedy that took risks, smash that like button.
Approved by the PR team and sanitized for your safety.
I've got serious questions about whether any of this is true. I mean, in every job I've ever worked, I've had people who would jump through brick walls for me, and I can be a tough boss. I'm not an asshole, but I'll say, like, that was a shitty packet. Like, we need to do better. That was not okay. And the team, my team loves me and I love my team because we are all about putting out great work product. And I'm quick to compliment too. Like, what did he say? He basically said, are you okay? Seriously, do you need help? That's causing people to lose their hair? People need to toughen up. Your workplace is not your nana's lap.
Rogan sees all this and screams into his microphone. Kelly observes it and raises a chilling eyebrow. But their conclusion is identical. We've replaced genuine laughter with clapter. Audience applause isn't for something funny, it's for something ideologically correct. It's comedy as a sermon, with Kimmel playing the self-righteous preacher, reading directly from the gospel of whatever's trending. And the media? Oh, it's not just enabling this, it's practically begging for more. The safer, the more digestible, the more elite-approved your content is, the more coverage you'll get. Kimmel doesn't just survive in this ecosystem, he thrives. He's the model, the prototype, the build a late-night host version 2.0, now with 50% less edge and 100% more moral superiority. So, here we stand, at what can only be described as a cultural crossroads. On one side, you have the Rogans and the Kellys. Flawed, yes, but fiercely independent, swinging wildly at the padded walls of the media bubble. On the other, the Kimmels of the world, smiling through rehearsed sincerity and carefully polished monologues, floating gently on the surface of public approval like a duck in a $4,000 suit. But this isn't just about one man losing his comedic backbone. This is about an entire entertainment industry that's forgotten how to laugh, unless it's at pre-approved targets. It's about satire that used to bite, now settling for gentle nibbling like a tofu piranha. What I'm about to share next is the truly scary part. It's the punchline that actually landed.
I don't think that conversation is a conversation that should be held in front of an audience in 5-minute chunks like they do on television.
Yeah.
That's a conversation that you have to let air out. I want to know why you think the way you think. Him, sit down with Jimmy. Why do you think the way you think? Why would you think that it's okay to say that it's a real simple thing? The people that have been vaccinated, you treat them. And the people that took horse goo, rest in peace, Wheezy. Really? Is that really how you feel?
It's about what happens when comedians stop challenging the powerful and instead start brunching with them. Because when comedy forgets who it's supposed to mock, the punchline isn't just weak, it's tragic. If you need a visual metaphor, picture this. A clown, once known for flipping tables and setting the stage on fire, now sits quietly at one. He sips herbal tea, nodding politely, as studio executives tell him how brave he is. Meanwhile, the audience isn't laughing. They're clapping desperately, pretending that what they just heard was comedy and not some carefully curated confession.
Autopsy. And the subject isn't just Kimmel. It's everything he now represents.
Back in the day when I was on the prime time of Fox and you were on the prime time of CNN, a couple of hours after our shows ended, late night comics would come on and they occasionally would make us laugh, Pierce. As you know, they've abandoned that game now and they're just political operatives out there. Look at this.
Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great.
It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate.
So yes, Rogan swung the hammer. Kelly brought the scalpel. But this wasn't just about Jimmy Kimmel. They were both dissecting the same thing: the artificial, calculated, and utterly humorless soul of modern media. The scary part? The punchline landed. The even scarier part? It wasn't even funny. Late night used to feel like a bar at 2 a.m. Chaotic, unpredictable, sometimes inappropriate, but always brutally honest. Now, it feels like a corporate team-building seminar hosted by someone who used to be fun. And if you're wondering where the spark went, Rogan and Kelly just handed you the map. Because when Joe Rogan, the human Molotov cocktail, and Megyn Kelly, the PR assassin, both circle the same target, you don't get an interview, you get an autopsy. Honestly, just get over yourselves. This whole culture of fake growth, the illusion of bravery within echo chambers, the idea that comedy is only okay if it flatters the right people, it's utterly pathetic. Rogan and Kelly didn't just humiliate Jimmy Kimmel, they exposed the entire flimsy scaffolding holding up his stage. And they didn't do it with rage. They did it with disappointment, with ice-cold sarcasm, and a perfectly well-earned side-eye. It's the kind of ridicule that doesn't scream. It smirks. It doesn't need a mic drop because the stunned silence that follows is louder than any applause. So, the next time Kimmel climbs onto his moral lifeguard chair to warn America about the dangers of mean tweets, maybe take a moment. Ask yourself, are you really watching a comedian? Or are you watching a cleverly disguised commercial for the new, bland flavor of Kool-Aid? Because the jokes used to be the point. Now, they're just the delivery system for the lecture. And if you're still laughing, Rogan and Kelly have just one question. At what? This was the roast that didn't need a stage. Just two fiercely independent critics, a hollow brand, and a punchline that, well, wrote itself. If this resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe for more unfiltered media dissections, and share this with anyone who needs to hear this truth. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think is the biggest problem with late night comedy today?